Greetings, my fellow from South Thinkers. O3 News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swamp Mango, South Florida. And today's date is Wednesday, December 27, 2017. Yeah, I decided to do another episode today. That just caught my attention about a few things, but I'm not gonna shouldn't take that long. Plus, I'm at Speakeasy New York Style Pizza, located at 207 Southwest 2nd Street in the Hermosa District of Fort Lauderdale. So, phone number is 954-522-6655 if you want to do a pickup. They don't do deliveries. So, yeah, it's a good vibe. Tony's cool. Everyone else. Let's check out some of the Yelp reviews. Some people can't please everybody, but, overall, it's good. Remember, everything's human. We always have our errors in life. But, there's a couple things caught my attention when everyone's really focusing on the tax agreement, which Trump signed into law, and people are so excited about it and praising him, be the Lord and Savior and all that. However, one thing people need to be focusing on, which a person like myself is paying attention to, is the military-industrial complex. So, I'm going to do a couple articles on that, and this one here was an exclusive. Came out today by Kurt Nemo, New Buzz exclusive. If you want to read the content, be a member, do a pledge. It's not for profit, but it's for a good cause, true journalism, no partisan politics or corporate sugar daddies. Because this one here, it says Trump sells lethal weapons to Ukraine, and as it reads here. In late November, the Atlantic Council, established as a NATO treaty section in 1961, applauded the new National Security Council for its decision to send more weapons to the Poroshenko government in Ukraine. On November 18th, the report, President Trump considered a plan to counter Russian aggression in the region. The NCS plan included a $47 million grant package that would supply Ukraine with high-tech weapons, including Javelin anti-tank missiles. The Men Portable Fire and Forget anti-tank missile is manufactured jointly by Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Each launch, it costs $246,000. Individual Javelin missiles run $78,000 each. A little more than a month later, on December 22nd, the Trump administration officially announced a plan to provide the Kiev government with lethal weapons, including the Javelin. At the State Department, Heather Nauert said the Trump administration has decided to provide enhanced defensive capabilities to help Ukraine build its military and defend its sovereignty and deter further aggression. Oh, really? The aggression includes status referendums held in the Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast and the Donbass region in 2014. Although Poroshenko government tried to disrupt the vote, participation was high and the people of Donbass voted overwhelmingly to leave Ukraine. The vote was portrayed by the establishment media in the West as Russian interference in an attempt to undermine the sovereignty of Ukraine. However, if this was the case, Russia would have immediately recognized the breakaway republics. It didn't do this. Instead, the case was in South Ossetia and Abkhazia. In 2008, it refrained. President Obama balked at a proposal to arm Ukraine in its ongoing war with the residents of Donbass located on the Russian border. Trump, more specifically, and his generals have signaled they are ready to arm the government, ruled in large part by ultra-nationalist Russophobes. In November, Secretary of Defense James Mad Dog Mattis promised to review military aid to the Eastern European country. This permits me be informed, go back and advocate for what I believe you need as brought to me by your Minister of Defense and certainly your President. Mattis said in August. For example, we just approved, just very recently, last couple of weeks, another $175 million worth of equipment, including some specialized equipment that can be used to help defend the country, bringing to a total of nearly $750 million in the last several years. You see what's been going on here? Keep the MIC machine going. Mattis also said at the time the U.S. will provide defense lethal weapons. The Pentagon, Congress, and the Trump State Department are all in agreement on going with arms sales. According to Andrea Parubi, former chairman of the Verkhovna Rada, Ukrainian parliament, the U.S. has signed a security agreement with the junta government. Parubi is an admirer of Stepan Bandera, an ultra-nationalist who cooperated with Nazi Germany during the war. Parubi founded the Social National Party of Ukraine. The party fuses radical nationalism with fascism. How sweet it is. It's like the Third Reich revisited, right? Absolutely. Nationalism is at the heart of the conflict in Ukraine. The Organization of the Ukrainian Nationalists during the interwar period advocate the establishment of an independent and ethnically pure Ukrainian state. They share with the Nazis the idea of a fascist New Europe. Ukrainian nationalists carry out ethnic cleansing operations against Jews, Poles, and other foreign ethnic groups. In the early Cold War period, American intelligence collaborated with the Bandera ultranationalist movement during its covert war against the Soviet Union. The Soviets squashed Ukrainian nationalism and assassinated Bandera. Crimea is nearly 60% ethnic Russian, and much of eastern Ukraine has a large Russian population. In addition to Ukraine, the State Department arranged a deal to sell Javelin missile systems to Georgia at an estimate cost of $75 million. The State Department approved the sale on November 20th. God bless the empire, right? This proposed sale will contribute to foreign policy and national security of the United States by improving security of Georgia. A Defense Security Cooperation Agency press release stated on November 20th the proposed sale of this equipment and support will not alter the basic balance in the region. Georgia and Russia fought a war in 2008 in South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Hostilities erupted after Russian President Vladimir Putin authorized official relations between his government and separatists in the two breakaway republics. In August, then, President Mikhail Saakashvili ordered an invasion of the South Ossetian capital of Tizvino. Russia responded by sending troops across the border. European Union fact-finding missions led by the Swiss diplomat Heidi Tagalavini found that Saakashvili had started the 5-day war. So you hear songs in the background, so sorry about that. U.S. government is corporate media portray the current conflict in Ukraine as Russian provocation and characterize the popular vote in Crimea to leave Ukraine and federate Russia in a Russian annexation. Less than a month after the Donbass referendum, the Ukrainian armed forces began shelling Semyonova in the industrial zone in its vicinity and with mortars and artillery. Civilians were being deliberately massacred by the Ukrainian army and its independent warlord battalions who fought under the orders of Kiev, writes Candy Applebaum. The issue was clear-cut. Kiev was literally slaughtering civilians in order to create terror for a strategic end, which is the difficult definition of the word terrorism. Their strategic ends were to force Donbass to surrender to the coup regime. Since April of 2014, more than 10,000 soldiers and civilians have been killed, nearly 25,000 wounded in the fighting, and more than 2 million Ukrainians have been displaced from their homes. In February 2016, Russia's investigative committee documented war crimes committed by the Ukrainian armed forces and published in these books, The Tragedy of the Southeastern Ukraine, the White Book of Crimes. It consists of 2,500 volumes with over 100,000 witnesses, soldiers, militiamen, policemen, civilians, women, and children. Kirill Kulikov, the former head of the Ukrainian Interpol Bureau and ex-deputy of the Verkhovna Rada, told Ukrainian 112 TV in September the government is involved in war crimes. These are war crimes. We have not declared war, so why are the troops being used against people? According to the international standards and the international law, We don't have the right to use troops against civilians, Kulikov said. In addition, Colonel General of the Ukrainian Officers Corps, Vladimir Rubin, admitted in 2014 civilians in Donetsk were deliberately shelled by the Ukrainian military. Maybe they fully deserved it, he said. Now that Trump has signed off on providing Poroshenko government with lethal weapons, the Wanta in Kiev has decided to step up in its attacks in Donbass. On December 19th, international observers reported intensified fight in the region despite a ceasefire agreement. Decision to provide lethal assistance to the Wanta in Kiev contradicts a previous move by the Trump campaign in July 2016 to change the Republican platform by assisting the Poroshenko government. Russian Republican delegates to the National Security Committee platform meeting in Cleveland were taken aback when the Trump team orchestrated a series of events to make sure the GOP will not send weapons to Ukraine. This is another example of Trump being out of step with GOP leadership and in the mainstream in a way that shows he would be dangerous for America and the world, Rachel Hoff, a platform committee member, told the Washington Post. Since taking office, however, Trump has embraced the foreign policy agenda of the neocons, including its increasingly dangerous confrontation with Russia. Trump said he will allow his generals to run foreign policy. That's insane, right? The McMaster Mattis faction is often portrayed as adults in the room, in contrast to Make America Great Again, nationalist factions that claims to be less interventionist. The Trump agenda in regard to Russia was spelled out when VP Mike Pence traveled to Eastern Europe in August. In a speech, Estonian, French, British, American troops at the headquarters of the Estonian Defense Force in the capital of Tallinn, Pence declared Russia continued to seek withdrawal international borders by force, undermine democracies of sovereign nations, and divide the free nations of Europe one against another. While the Obama administration often facilitated on support for the junta following the U.S. Department orchestrated coup, the Trump administration has no reservations, just as there was no difference between the same neocon interventionist aggression displayed under Obama and the war crime-ridden Bush-Cheney administration. President Trump has now also marched a quick step down that same seamless path towards world war as did Obama, writes Joachim Hagelbein. Regardless of who or what party occupies the White House, the one constant is an aggressive foreign policy delivered by deep state neocons entrenched in Washington, D.C., in Washington power for many decades now, and the neocons take their orders from the ruling elite. Reinventing the Cold War is good for business, specifically in the case of Ukraine. Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, the joint manufacturers of the FGM-148 Javelin anti-tank missile. However, for the neocons, it's more personal. Vladimir Putin cracked down on the Russian oligarchs and infuriate them, in a particular arrest of Yukov's oil tycoon Mikhail Khodorkovsky. The important thing about Mikhail Khodorkovsky is that he is an America's man in Russia. If there is a pro-Western political upheaval in Russia, and Putin finally falls on his ass, Khodorkovsky will probably be at the center of the new power structure, writes Peter Lee. Finally, Trump's conversation has nothing to do with preventing Russian aggression in Ukraine and the rest of Eastern Europe. It's about ruling elites and their inability to control Russia, its economy, and politics. Putin has long opposed globalism. Since at least 2004, his policies have strived to diminish the power of transitional corporations, multilateral institutions, and globalist economic system. When Putin took power in the winter of 1999-2000, his country was defenseless. It was bankrupt. It was being carved up by its new kleptocratic elites in collision with its old imperial rivals, the Americans. Putin changed that, writes Chris Caldwell of the Weekly Standard. Vladimir Putin stands against the globalist order and for the elite. It's brought politics of both parties and his lapdog corporate media. This is intolerable. The elite are now attempting to undermine Russia by all costs, even if the ultimate cost is nuclear war. When you see what's been happening, even in Ukraine, this is like I've been saying this in a good period of time, part of the grand chessboard. Even though Zbigniew Brzezinski's dead, he wants to fulfill their legacy of supporting a puppet government in that area. And so this is really people have to really pay attention to this. And what's been happening, it's been like a lot of cloak and dagger going on with the whole Russian collision, but now this is more essential than the wet dream that the mainstream media like CNN wants to put out. This is what we got to really pay attention to, my friends. I don't care if you are a cheerleader to this man. You got to question his actions. These bad foreign policies will lead to blowback. And we all know the CIA and the order are pushing this to make this a prime, make it official, and use the United States as a patsy nation. And I do see this not too pleased. And I can say this to all you people that are part of that cheerleading squad who want to attack Russia. You go on the front line, see how tough you are. That includes all those cowards in Washington, D.C. that want to be sanctioned and go to war with this country. I want them on the front line too. They know who they are. And I don't give a damn if you get offended by this or not, but they're not more than a bunch of cowardly parasites, vampires, psychic vampires. And symbolically, what's going to happen with that mindset? A silver stick can be thrown in your heart. You'll be stripped naked completely and in shame. I would like to tell us to Mr. President Trump, stand down. You want to make America great again? Let's go back to our freedoms. Get rid of the Federal Reserve. Take time to say hell no to the World Bank, the IMF, the World Trade Organization. Get the United Nations out of the United States. Let's become a constitutional republic once again instead of going with the empire. Your centristic attributes, your agenda is unhealthy. Stop being part of the herd conformity. You better keep it real. So I recommend this, my friends. You tell the president, stand down. Plain and simple. We don't want any wars. There's already enough suffering out there as it is. You're going to bring it into North America, then you will be on your hands. Ooh, okay. So, I'll be right back. Woo! Okay, cool. So, next one here, keep an activist post. This was written by Brandon Tuberville. So, got Tony here. Oh, hey, Tony, say hello to the world.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
All right, man. So, Squeaky's New York Pizza is a good place to go, right?
Oh, the best.
There you go.
Anyway, thanks for coming, Craig.
You got it, man. Thank you.
Right. Good info.
Hey, thank you, brother. All right. See, he's got to pop up in a little cameo appearance. One of the good brothers I knew for like over almost 20 years. Yeah, so this next one here is U.S. officially sends lethal arms to Ukraine. Russia says U.S. crossed the line. Brandon Tuberville. As it says here, after its horrendous decision to officially recognize Jerusalem as the Israeli capital, the Trump administration is showing signs of its intention to provide anti-tank missiles and possibly even Javelin missile systems to Ukrainian fascist forces in their fight against the Donbass separatists and, according to the State Department itself, Russia. Earlier, the Trump administration has announced that it would provide lethal aid to Ukraine, with the U.S. characterized as defense, as The Hill reported. The State Department confirmed that the U.S. has decided to provide Ukraine with defensive equipment. The United States has decided to provide Ukraine enhanced capital capability as part of the effort to help Ukraine build its long-term defense capacity, defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity, deter further aggression. The department spokeswoman Heather Nerritt said in a statement. I know it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but trust me, I'm not. U.S. assistance in entirely defensive in nature, as we have always said. Ukraine is a sovereign country that has the right to defend itself. The United States remains committed to the Minsk Agreement as a way to forward in eastern Ukraine. The Trump administration earlier this week signed up a sale of lethal arms to Ukraine. And the project from the Obama administration. Yep, to pass the torch of neoconservatism. The administration approved the sale model M107A1 sniper system and associated equipment to the country on Wednesday at a value of $41.5 million. The The move drew swift praise from Russia hawks in Congress, including Senator Bob Corker, who from Republican from Tennessee, who he does masturbate for the war gods, who had urged the Obama administration to do more about Russian aggression into Ukraine. I say throw that scumbag in the front line. Terrorist supporter anti-POA activist John McCain predictably praised the move as well, but demanded that the step toward confrontation with Russia only be the first step. I say throw that old bag of puss in there as well. See how far stooge that he is. Russia has responded strongly, condemning the move and stating that the United States is crossing the line. Washington is trying to present itself as a mediator. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said, "It is not the mediator at all. It is an accomplice of fomenting a war." They start talking about the Javelin missile complex to begin with. The next question is, what's next? Said Ryabkov, American weapons can lead to victims in our neighboring country, to which we cannot remain indifferent. To be clear, the Trump administration has approved the sale of lethal weapons to Ukraine. However, the jury is still out as to as far this aid will go. The administration's language has been shadowy in regards to whether or not heavier weapons such as Javelin anti-tank missile systems will be shipped to Ukraine at some point in the future. The administration has yet to approve these missiles for sale, but reports and the behavior of the Trump administration suggest such approvals are on their way. Obviously, Trump's move is a step toward greater conflict with Russia, who has been covertly supporting the Donbass separatists in their attempt to gain independence from Kiev. It is now very possible that unofficial Russian soldiers, operatives, and assets may be killed in Ukraine by American weapons, a drastic and grossly unnecessary escalation in the conflict that has seen fighting increase over the past few weeks. American weapons in the hands of Ukrainian soldiers are not an offensive, but for the decisive rebuff of the aggressor, protection of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians, as well as for effective self-defense. That Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko is also transatlantic vaccination against the Russian virus of aggression. Yeah, remember, he's just another bend over Bob to the New World Order. He's just another fell butt boy, you know what I'm saying? The crisis in Ukraine, however, was entirely instigated by the United States and NATO, an obvious attempt to interrupt Russian-Ukrainian relations and install a regime hostile to Russia in the place of Yanukovych. Russia responded defensively by annexing Crimea and covertly supporting Donbass separatist fight against Nazis and fascist forces of Ukraine, backed by the United States and other Western powers. It's been well known for the American military mercenaries, aka contracts like Blackwater, have been operating in Ukraine for at least a year. About 400 elite mercenaries from the notorious U.S. private security firm Academy, formerly Blackwater, taking in part in the Ukrainian military operation against anti-government protesters in the southeastern regions of the country. German media reports. The Bild am Sonntag newspaper, citing a source in intelligence circle, wrote Sunday that Academy I won't be back. Just a little bit of entertainment outside. What is what it says here? The Bild am Sonntag newspaper, citing source in the intelligence circle, wrote Sunday that academic employees are involved in the Kiev military crackdown on a pro-autonomy activist in the near town of Slavyansk in the Donetsk region. Yeah, please. On April 29th, German intelligence service. One moment, train's coming by. Alright, cool. A little bit of people arguing over politics, but very one-dimensional. Screaming the yell on top of the lungs with the point across. Good grief. But I'm going to proceed here. On April 29th, German intelligence service, BND, informed Chancellor Angela Merkel's government about the mercenaries participating in the operation, the paper said. R.A. Novosti reported. It is not clear who commands the private military contractors and pays for the service, however. Cute. In March, media appears suggesting that the co-imposed government in Kiev could have employed up to 300 mercenaries. There was before the new government launched a military operation against the anti-Madin activists, or terrorists, as Kiev put it, in southeast Ukraine. Sputnik also relates the activities of Blackwater Academy fighters' presence inside Ukraine. On December 31st, 2014, news agency reported the Academy, formerly and more popularly known as Blackwater, is back in the news as reports trickling, and they'll train an experimental battalion of 550 Ukrainian soldiers in urban warfare next month. The source who spoke to Russia's ITAR-TASS news agency specified that the $3.5 million training will include marksmanship operations by assault groups in urban conditions, close combat, and combat logistics support for the battalion. Areas of focus that Blackwater is intimately familiar from its time in Iraq. In fact, if it's deployment, is there any indication that it may be training Ukraine's experimental battalion to carry out the same carnage in Donetsk in the future that Blackwater did in Baghdad in the past? It's an open secret that the ceasefire hasn't ceased any fire on either side, and Kiev's forces seem to be gearing up for a continuation of war. Urban warfare training won't help them stop a mythical Russian invasion, likely to be fought more in the field than the forests if it did happen, but would definitely come in handy in subjugating the self-defense forces in East Ukraine's main cities.
I like that, Henry. I gotta tell you.
Yep.
It's a good-looking car.
Cool.
It's a good-looking car, right?
Yeah, while some may attempt to discount the presence of Blackwater mercenaries on the ground of technicality, since they are not official U.S. troops, they would do well to remember that the United States has already committed a number of military personnel to Ukraine in the form of advisors, a famous destination that preceded several America's quagmires, as Trumpvich wrote the Military Times in June 2014. A small team of American military advisors will soon head to Ukraine to assess their embattled nation's mid- and long-term needs for defense reform, a Pentagon official said Thursday. Pentagon spokeswoman Eileen Lena said senior U.S. defense officials met with senior Ukrainian officials earlier this week to discuss ways our countries could strengthen our long-term defense cooperation to help Ukraine build highly effective armed forces and defense institutions. The dispatch of advising team to Ukraine was not just a one-time deal either. It was stated months after the initial announcement that the United States was going to continue its policy of sending personnel to act as advisors to provide training to the Ukrainian junta. Still, others have called into question whether or not advising and training is all these individuals and teams are doing. For instance, a video that surfaced recently taken in the eastern Ukrainian city of Mariupol seems to prove that many have suspected for some time that U.S. operatives are on the ground inside Ukraine assisting the junta army in their campaign of extermination of eastern Ukrainians. The video shows a Ukrainian journalist approaching a number of men in Ukrainian military uniforms and attempting to ask a question of what she thinks is a Ukrainian soldier. As she approaches the man, she asks in Ukrainian, "Tell me what happened here." To which he responds in perfect American English, no foreign accent, out of my face, please." Reports coming out of Ukraine also seem to demonstrate that the United States has already made a decision whether or not to provide Kiev with lethal assistance. For instance, an article entitled "Militia DNR, Ukrainian Army Uses U.S. Missiles," and published on the Russian website Life News Russia reports that the members of the DNR, Donetsk People's Republic militia, have found shell fragments that do not belong to the Ukrainian military. Those armaments, according to DNR militia members, belong to the United States. The report states, please note that the translation is very rough. The shelling of Gorlovsky Ukrainian Army uses American equipment. Proof this channel information was to provide to Life's News by the Donetsk Army. In a exclusive interview they told and shown from which the security forces shelled the city as reported from the scene by a correspondent from Life News. January 31st, the Ukrainian military fired on the Gorlovoki Cathedral. A shell landed on the roof on the temple grounds in the refectory, in which the result being was there was a fire. Later, the DNR militia found that several fragments of shells that do not belong to Ukrainian artillery, even more so not to use Soviet or post-Soviet military equipment, according to the hypothesis. The APU uses weapons that belong to NATO. The deputy brigade commander of the DNR army, signed Biker, showed shells and said that it was after the shelling Ukrainian military militia are inflicted upon the DNR militia. There's a special projectile 155 caliber self-propelled artillery of the M109A1 American production, which is used by the NATO countries. As apparatus is installed a bottom detonator. If it gets into the walls and gets stuck in it, then he shall rend it easily. If it gets to the interior of the building, the blast wave will happen indoors. It is these shells militias found after fire in the building of the cathedral, and these fragments are the main evidence that the temple has been under fire from NATO guns. In addition, during the shelling, Gorlovki militias are increasingly finding shells that are analogous to the castle, only the size of a smaller caliber than our arms, and is only 75 millimeters. The following projectiles that we found, a 75 caliber, they belong to the Jet's burst system, which is installed on all-terrain vehicles. A more mobile system that can move easily through the streets of the city, says Militia Biker information. The brigade commanders also addressed the presence of foreign troops fighting for the Kiev junta. He stated the presence of foreigners in their army, and radio intercepts confirm our intelligence when we hear interceptions phrased in English and Polish. That the campaign against Eastern Ukraine is actually a campaign of extermination of the Eastern people is not exactly a well-kept secret either, except, of course, to the Western public. Some of the evidence corroborating the claim of intentional targeting of civilians on the part of the Kiev regime was recently uncovered by REN TV, a major Russian news network privately owned. While covering a skirmish taking place in Ozeryanovka, the journalist got up an upfront look at the artillery coordinates of the Ukrainian military. These coordinates were indeed civilian targets, such as restaurants, cafes, and markets. The positions were abandoned after the assault by the Donbass militia, who subsequently recovered the artillery coordinates and held them up for the camera to see. The report, which can be seen in this video, was transcribed by Eric Zeus of the Washington blog. It states, January 29, 2015, the journalists of REN TV Today received the first documentary evidence that the residential areas of Donbass, rebellion region of the former Ukraine, the farthest east part of the Ukraine, shown here in the darkest purple, are being targeted. Although Kiev may claim that stray shells hit a hospital or a kindergarten, we have found on the front line that they're being left behind by departed Ukrainian soldiers. Artillery maps where the targets were restaurants, cafeterias, and shops. Here is an exclusive report by our correspondent Vadelin Prushin from the former UAF's Ukrainian Armed Forces trenches. This is a field near the village of Orzyannikova, from which recently was a Ukrainian battery firing at Kolovoka. The rebel soldier says that many of these abandoned tanks and other weapons are undamaged, and they will say tomorrow that Russia supplied them to us, but it's actually their equipment that will be repaired if necessary, but will be used at war against them. Views of government-destroyed Gorlovka are shown, and the rebel-destroyed dugouts were found. Notes of cannon commanders' maps the documents show that shelling the city by the government was not random, but deliberate. The coordinates of the targets are shown. For example, one is a restaurant, another is a cafeteria or a market with no militiamen were stationed. Here are the target maps, irrefutable evidence of war crimes. You can actually look at these yourselves. Yet another interview transcribed by Zeus and broadcast on the Horomantisky TV, a pro-regime television station that is severely funded by the United States and the Dutch government, as well as George Soros. It was openly stated that civilians and civilian infrastructure was being openly targeted by the Kiev fascists. The first interview is with commander of the Ukrainian government volunteer Shakhtar's battalion, Ruslan Onishenko. Onishenko states, "Our mission being employed of the Ministry of the Interior is to clean the cities after the army has worked with this territory with the aircraft, artillery, and heavy military equipment. This is a normal tactical approach to warfare." Colonel Vladimir Rubin, retired, was also interviewed by Hermedesk, where he seconded Onishenko's state sentiment. He said, I want to offer the Ukrainian artillerists medals to those who shell the city of Donetsk, the houses and civilian population, for they artillerists have deserved it. Medals both because of the accuracy and inaccuracy. It's one thing if attack groups of any mobile mortar troops drive through the city and shoot, but if the artillery units fire from the air, i.e. from the distance, then no one can claim that separatists shoot themselves, i.e. that the people who are being killed in the city are victims of separatist troops mistakenly hitting passers by when aiming at government troops. He is saying that artillerists will clearly get the blame. Whereas street fighters can always blame the terrorists, the shelling there is done as intimidation, not just object destruction, but intimidation. To get the population to flee to nearby Russia, the civilian population is intimidated by a chaotic bombardment of different objects. There are many shells that plug directly into the streets or vegetable gardens, and so make the very ground on which these people live terrifying to them. The interview continues. Interviewer, this refers to those that didn't explode. Answer, yes. There are many of those shells that fail to detonate. But Gorlovka has been fortunate to have not yet been totally eradicated from the face of the earth, along with the civilian population. Interviewer, you mean that the city is bombarded violently? Answer, Gorlovka was shelled by our troops even as I went there for the prisoner exchange. Although it was known I was there, our troops, kept up the bombardment of Gorlovka. Clearly, the U.S. NATO mission inside Ukraine, much as like mission inside Syria, has nothing to do with the concern over human rights, democracy, or the lives of civilians. In fact, quite the opposite is the case. The U.S. and NATO are interested in their geopolitical positions and encircling of Russia and world hegemony. If civilians get in the way, then civilians will be eliminated. To be sure, the Russians have their own elite fighters operating in Ukraine as well. However, it should be noted that while both sides are playing geopolitical games, it was the United States that initiated their Euro-Maidan color revolution, the push of neo-Nazis and fascists, and the push to include Ukraine as a NATO member. But this, of course, is what makes the game so dangerous. For the potential for a collision between two nuclear powers is one that concerns every human being and every living thing upon this planet. The United States and Russia hold power to eradicate the significant portion of the population in a single blast and much of what remains in the fallout. Thus, the decision to arm the Ukrainian junta is undoubtedly one that must be opposed, and I have to agree with this man completely. More of the sham, tobacco, New World Order, 101 at its finest, my friends. That's why I'm always, I know sometimes I repeat myself, against imperialism. But like I said before, gets the, Levitsky's legacy of trying to control Ukraine with their own puppets. All the world's a stage, my friends, and good people are suffering from their ignorance, their hate, and contempt. Like I said before, let the United States get out of these organizations and become a constitutional republic. That's it. They're not going to be perfect. They can be a hell of a lot better than this. I know the Russian people want to see the same thing. We are not the enemies. It's the idiots, the scumbags that are trying to run the game and use us as pawns and they're peasants. So, that's what I want to say about that. One more thing. This one came out from forward.com. First time I checked this out. And this is an opinion by Alice Kane, came out yesterday. Why doesn't Congress care when Israel kills American citizens? And believe it or not, this is a Jewish newspaper. So, as it reads here, last March, a Palestinian man fatally stabbed a tourist walking near the Tel Aviv coast. It was 5 months into the intifada of the knives. The name was given to the spate of Palestinian attacks on Israelis that began in October 2015. By March 2016, these types of near-daily random stabbings acts had become just another violent chapter of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, indistinguishable from all the rest. The death of this tourist, however, was different. The victim's name was Taylor Force, and he was an American combat veteran on a study trip to Israel. In the aftermath of his gruesome death, ensuring accountability for the death of Force became a celebrated cause in Congress. Senators and congressmen rushed to condemn the stabbing attack and praised Force for his service. 6 months after the murder of Force, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, slapped his name on a bill called the Taylor Force Act that will cut U.S. aid from going to the Palestinian Authority because of the authorities' practice of giving payments to militants and their families. On December 5th, the House unanimously passed the act. The Senate is expected to pass it before the end of the year, and the Trump administration officially has said the president supports the bill. But not all the American deaths in the Israeli-Palestine are treated equally, and a difference in reaction to the killing of Palestinian Americans by Israeli forces, and a stark reminder of how little Palestinian life is valued in the U.S. Congress. When Americans of Palestinian descent are shot dead by Israeli soldiers, no senator or congressman rush to press for accountability of Israel's army, or put the names of Palestinian victims on legislation that would tie U.S. aid to Israel to policy changes. 11 days before Force's death, another American citizen was killed in the Holy Land by an Israeli soldier. Mahmoud Shalom was a 16-year-old teenager from Florida who had moved to Deir Dewan, his family's village named Ramallah, near Ramallah. On February 26, 2016, an Israeli soldier fatally shot him at a checkpoint while Mahmoud tried to cross his way to visit his aunt. The army said Mahmoud tried to stab a soldier. Well, witness I spoke was as part of my investigation into the killing for the Intercept, said that Mahmoud was shot when his hands were up, and that he had no knife out. A Palestinian ambulance driver who arrived to the scene shortly after the shots were fired said Israeli soldiers shut down the checkpoint where Mahmoud was killed and prevented medical workers from assessing Mahmoud as he lay on the ground bleeding. Mahmoud died later that day. Unlike the killing of Taylor Force, Mahmoud's death passed with no condemnation from senators or Congress. Florida senators didn't say a word. Neither did Florida congressional representatives, including those who represent the district where his father, Mohammed, or his uncle, Salam, who has taken the lead on advocating for the family, lived. A spokeswoman for Congressman Tom Rooney, the representative at the time of Mohammed's killing for Solomon Shalom, told me the congressman reached out to the State Department after the incident for information about the killing. Rooney did not say anything publicly. To be fair, circumstances of Force's and Shalom's death are different. There is no question that a Palestinian militant stabbed Force to death for no reason. In case of Shalom, there is an irresolvable dispute between the witness account of the killing and the Israeli military story. But members of Congress could have easily and publicly demanded answers from the Israeli army to a number of outstanding questions. Why is there no video footage of the death? The army told Politico a security camera was not in range to capture the killing. But human rights advocates are skeptical of that claim. Why did the Israeli army close an investigation into Mahmoud's death in September 2016 and decide not to press criminal charges against soldiers responsible for the death? What evidence did he use in making that decision? The Army has since reported its inquiry after the witness testified to the Army about what he saw. Why did the military allegedly halt medical workers for helping Mahmoud? Did the soldiers use excessive force on a 16-year-old? Instead of members of Congress were silent, even as the families pursue accountability in the U.S. and Israel. It is a fair bet that if Palestinian Authority police officers shot an American to death in disputed circumstances, Congress would be up in arms. At the very least, they would be asking questions. The double standard in reaction to the death of Americans in Israel-Palestine has become a pattern. In October 2014, Israeli soldier killed Ora Hamad, a 14-year-old Palestinian American from Louisiana. The Army said Hamad was throwing a Molotov cocktail at the time of his death. Palestinians say he was among a group throwing rocks at soldiers. Once again, there was no congressional outrage and no questions raised about yet another incident where heavily armed soldiers shot a teenager to death. There have been sporadic efforts to hold Israel accountable for its misuse of U.S. military aid. Senator Patrick Leahy, for instance, has repeatedly called on the U.S. to apply the Leahy Law, a bill prohibiting U.S. military aid from ongoing to military units that abuse human rights to Israel. But human rights advocates say the U.S. has failed to do so, a failure that has shielded Israel from accountability over its treatment of Palestinians. By contrast, the Taylor Force Act, which is about holding the Palestinian Authority accountable for how it uses U.S. aid, is on a fast track to the President Trump desk. The message it sends is clear. U.S. Congress cares deeply about Americans killed in Israel-Palestine, but only if the assailants are Palestinian militants. And when Palestinian Americans are shot dead by Israeli soldiers, Congress shuts its mouth and the U.S. military aid continues to flow unimpeded to Israel, no questions asked. All thing I have to say is it's downright sick and unacceptable. And one of the reasons why I don't support this biased, prejudicial platform of the status quo. Exceptionalism. They can do it, but the other ones can't. No country is special, nor their soldiers. And it's not condemning people of all of Israel, but the criminal elements, the tyranny that's in that nation. And to be very frank, I recommend people read Israel's basic law, the Constitution. It's very interesting. Not like our U.S. Bill of Rights or U.S. Constitution. Something, my friend. You gotta pay attention. That's why I believe in ending foreign aid across the board, whether they're friends or foes. And it's not being anti-Semitic here. So don't even throw that back at me. The person who wrote this opinion is Jewish. Something to think about, right? Absolutely. Alright. And may their souls be forever free. Alright, my friends, that's it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or if something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com/Club3 with 3 eyes if you're going to be a donor, supporter, patron, it'd be awesome. You can hit me at gab.ai, Scene.life. I don't know what's going on with them, so I'm holding that back until further notice. In addition, you can get me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com, or the ones who are encrypted, folks. LokiLuck numbers 03@protonmail.com. Alright, my friends, that's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time, but always remember that the demonic resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.